When William Russell walked into his mansion and saw 3 kids in his living room, he froze. For 10 years, not even laughter was allowed in that house. And now? His black maid had broken the one rule he swore never to forgive. He reached for the phone to fire her, until one of the boys said something that made him stop cold. The chandelier caught the morning sun, casting golden diamonds across the marble floors of Breaker's estate. Silence had always ruled these halls. It was the kind of silence you could hear in your bones, cold, polished, and rehearsed. William Russell, billionaire financier, known for owning half of Newport and commanding the other half, had returned earlier than expected from a board meeting in Boston. He didn't like surprises, especially not inside his house. He stepped into the foyer and heard it. Laughter, sharp, high-pitched, childish. He stopped. A cold chill ran down his spine. He dropped his briefcase. No one in 10 years had dared cross that line. He turned the corner into the living room, and there they were, 3 little black boys, no older than 5. One was stacking crystal coasters like blocks. Another was drawing something on a notepad that belonged to his late wife. The third had climbed onto the leather couch, bouncing, giggling uncontrollably. And in the corner of the room, standing frozen, Maria. Her eyes widened in horror the second she saw him. She rushed forward, stumbling over her words. "Sir, Mr. Russell, I didn't mean... They were just..." But he didn't hear her. His blood had already boiled past logic. 10 years, no children, no laughter, no mess, no reminders. He clenched his jaw, reached into his pocket, and pulled out his phone. One call, just one call, and Maria would be escorted off the property within the hour. No references, no final paycheck. Just gone. She knew it. He knew it. But before his fingers could hit the screen, the little boy on the couch looked up at him, big brown eyes full of something William hadn't seen in years. He smiled. "Are you the man who lives in the castle?" he asked, innocent as the sky. "You look really, really sad." William's hand froze mid-air. His throat tightened. Something cracked. It wasn't just what the child said. It was how he said it, with no fear, no shame, just curiosity, honesty, like he could see through all the walls William had spent a decade building around himself. Maria stepped forward, hands shaking. "Please, Mr. Russell. I had no one to leave them with today. It won't happen again. Please don't fire me." But he didn't answer. He looked at the boy again, then at the drawing in the second boy's hand, a woman with long hair and a man beside her. His wife. His chest felt tight. Without saying a word, William turned and walked out of the room. Maria didn't know if that meant she was fired or forgiven. "Before we go any further, can I ask you something real quick? If you've made it this far, feeling that little tug in your chest, that moment when the boy looked up and said, 'You look really, really sad,' then don't just watch this story. Subscribe, because these are the stories we tell here, the ones that hit you where you least expect it, the ones that stay. And honestly, if this doesn't deserve a click, I don't know what does." Now, back to Maria and the billionaire she just accidentally changed forever. Maria didn't move, not even after the door clicked shut behind him. She stood in the living room, heart pounding, hands shaking, staring at the place where William Russell had just stood, rigid with fury, silent with something she couldn't name. The triplets looked at her confused. "Mommy?" one of them asked. "Did we do something bad?" She forced a smile, kneeling beside them. "No, baby. You just surprised the man who lives here." But inside, she was already packing in her mind. Her job, her stability. It was over. She'd broken the rule. The one rule, no children. And she had brought 3. Upstairs, William stood at his bedroom window, looking down at the estate grounds. The garden his late wife used to tend was still there, untouched, withered roses in cracked ceramic pots. Her swing still hung from the oak tree, slowly creaking in the breeze. He hadn't set foot in that garden since the funeral. He clenched the curtain tightly. Why today? Why these kids? And why did that boy's voice hit him like that? "You look really, really sad." He hadn't heard that kind of voice in 10 years. Not since. He swallowed hard. His mind pulled back the curtain of memory, despite his resistance. A girl's laugh. A smaller pair of footsteps echoing through the halls. A birthday balloon stuck on the chandelier. Then, sirens. Screams. A cold hospital room. Silence. And from that day on, the mansion became a mausoleum. He had money, power, everything, but no warmth. He chose that. He needed it that way. He couldn't afford to feel. But today, he felt. Downstairs, Maria gathered the boys' things. She had only been on the job 3 weeks. She never imagined William Russell himself would return early. The agency hadn't told her much. Just keep everything clean, don't ask questions, and never, never bring children to the estate. But life didn't always ask for permission. Her sitter had cancelled last minute. Rent was due. She had no choice. She thought if she kept them quiet, if they stayed in the servant quarters, it would be okay. But boys are boys. The twins got curious. The youngest wandered into the living room, and now, this. She wiped her eyes discreetly as she zipped up their backpack. That's when she heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming down the stairs. The boys stilled. Even they could feel it in the air. William appeared again, standing at the base of the staircase. His face unreadable. His eyes fixed on Maria. She stood tall, even as her heart pounded. "I understand if you want me gone," she said softly. "But please don't yell in front of my boys." There was a long pause. Then he spoke, his voice low. "I didn't say you were fired." Maria blinked. "Sir?" "I said," he repeated slower, "you're not fired. Yet." The triplets looked between them wide-eyed. William glanced at them, then back to her. "They stay in the servant quarters, away from the main floor. This doesn't happen again." Maria nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Thank you." He started to turn, but the youngest boy, still on the couch, blurted out, "Hey, mister, your house feels sad." William paused. For a moment, he didn't turn around. Then, without a word, he walked away again. If you were Maria, what would you have done? Would you risk your job to protect your children? Or stay quiet and play by the rules? Drop your answer in the comments. The next morning, Maria made sure the boys didn't leave the servant quarters. Not even for a second. She packed coloring books, snacks, puzzles, and even her own tablet to keep them occupied while she cleaned the mansion in silence. The hallway lights still buzzed faintly overhead. The marble floor reflected back her every cautious step. She worked faster than ever, making no noise, afraid of triggering something. She hadn't seen William since the night before, and part of her prayed she wouldn't again. Meanwhile, William sat in his study, surrounded by newspapers, untouched coffee, and unopened investment briefs. He wasn't reading, he was staring. At the notepad the second boy had drawn on. He hadn't thrown it away, hadn't even touched it, just stared at it for over an hour. There, in shaky, crayon-scrawled lines, was a drawing of a woman with flowing hair, and a man beside her. Both smiling. A small heart drawn between them. Why did that bother him? No, not bother. Unravel him. He had built this life brick by brick after his wife died. He fired every nanny, sold every toy, donated every photo. Nothing was allowed to remind him of what he had lost. And now, 3 strangers, children, had drawn a hole through his armor without even trying. He stood abruptly, pushing the notepad into the drawer, slamming it shut. Downstairs, Maria was dusting the fireplace when she felt eyes on her. She turned. William was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, not angry, not soft, just watching. She straightened immediately. "Good morning, Mr. Russell." "Where are they?" he asked. She swallowed. "In the quarters, sir, I made sure." He nodded once. "Good." A pause, heavy, uncomfortable. She turned back to the fireplace, but then he asked, "Why didn't you just call out sick?" She turned again, confused. "Sir? If you had no sitter, you could have just stayed home. Why risk it? Maria hesitated. She looked at him, choosing her words. Because this job puts food on their plates, and because I figured cleaning your mansion quietly with 3 boys in the back room was safer than leaving them with my neighbor's boyfriend. He blinked. She added, voice quieter, sometimes you don't get perfect options, just less bad ones. Something in that answer hit him. He gave a slow nod, then left the room without another word. That night, as the boys were getting ready for bed, the youngest, Jamari, whispered, "Is the castle man mad at us?" Maria sat on the bed, pulling him into her lap. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but he's not used to having kids around. He's just figuring it out." The middle twin piped up, "He should smile more. He looks like someone stole his ice cream." Maria laughed, a real, tired, grateful laugh. Then she added softly, almost to herself, "Maybe someone did." Upstairs, William passed by a room he hadn't entered in a decade, the nursery. The door was still closed, still dusty. He reached for the handle, but his hand hovered there, then dropped. Not yet. At this point, what do you think he should do? Keep running from the past or let the laughter back in? Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were William Russell? And hey, if your heart's whispering maybe people can change, then do me a favor. Subscribe. Not because the algorithm says so, but because stories like this, they're a reminder that even broken hearts can still beat. The rain came out of nowhere. One minute the skies over Newport were clear and crisp. The next, they cracked open like glass, thunder rolling over the Atlantic, lightning splitting the grey. Within minutes, the estate's winding driveways and rose gardens were soaked. Maria rushed to the back window. Her boys were outside and in the garden, chasing each other between the hedges. She had only looked away for a moment. She tore open the back door and sprinted out barefoot, yelling for them to come in. But before she could reach them, another figure stepped onto the stone path, dark coat soaked, silver hair clinging to his forehead. William. He moved faster than she expected, picking up one of the twins who had slipped on the wet grass, lifting him like someone who had done it before. Maria froze. All 3 boys looked stunned, clinging to her legs now, shivering and confused. "You should keep the back gate locked," he said sharply. "That drop into the ravine isn't fenced." I'm sorry," Maria stammered. It was only a second." He looked at her, water dripping from his jaw, then at the boys, then back at her. "Get them dry. Use the guest wing," he said, turning to walk inside. Maria blinked. "Sir? The guest wing?" "I'm not going to have them catching pneumonia in the servants' quarters. Use the blue suite." She stood there, stunned, as the front door closed behind him. An hour later, the guest wing, once reserved for politicians, opera singers, and foreign dignitaries, was filled with the smell of cocoa and the sound of cartoon laughter. Maria had found warm towels, thick robes, and enough bubble bath to flood the tub. The triplets were tucked under heated blankets, cocoa in hand, watching The Lion King on a 72-inch screen. And William? He was down the hall, standing in the doorway, watching again. He didn't say a word. Just watched. Maria turned toward him. "Thank you for letting us stay in here." He didn't move. "You didn't have to." "I know." She hesitated. "Why did you?" she asked quietly. William exhaled slowly, his voice low. "Because they're children, and I've already lost one." Maria's chest tightened. He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. For the first time, Maria saw it, not the billionaire, not the employer, but the man. Broken, still bleeding, even if the world thought he was made of gold. "Mr. Russell," she started, but he shook his head. "I don't want your pity." "I wasn't offering it," she said gently. "Just understanding." That made him look at her. Really look. And for a second, just a second, and something passed between them. Not flirtation, not romance, not yet. Just something real. Human. Then one of the triplets shouted, "Mommy, Simba's daddy just died." The heartbreak in his voice made William flinch. Maria excused herself and went to her boys. William stayed in the doorway a moment longer, then walked away. But this time, his steps were slower. Maria hadn't planned to go looking through his things. She was just putting away folded laundry, towels from the guest suite, when she noticed the door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly ajar. Dust danced in the sunlight, pouring through the lace-curtained windows. The air smelled untouched, like something sacred had been locked away for years. She pushed the door open softly. The room inside was small, personal, a child's room. The wallpaper was pale blue, faded with time. There were tiny sailboats painted in one corner, and an old wooden rocking horse still sat in the corner like it was waiting for someone to come back. There were no toys scattered on the floor, no clothes, no mess, just stillness. In the center of the dresser was a photo frame, the only thing in the room not covered in dust, as if someone had been coming here silently, just to keep this one piece alive. Maria stepped closer. The photo showed a little girl with curly brown hair, held tightly in the arms of a younger William Russell, and beside them, a woman, glowing, laughing, alive. She didn't need to be told who they were. The late wife. The daughter. The reason William Russell had banned children from this house wasn't because he disliked them. It was because he had lost one, and he couldn't bear the sound of what he missed most. Behind her, a voice made her jump. "You're not supposed to be in here." She turned quickly. William stood in the doorway, his eyes not angry, but tired, defeated. "I'm so sorry," she said instantly. "I wasn't trying to pry. It's okay." He stepped inside. Slowly, his gaze fixed on the photo. "Her name was Grace," he said. "She was 6. My wife, Helena, picked out this wallpaper. She wanted a nautical theme. Said it'd help our daughter dream big." Maria stayed quiet. She could feel the pain in his voice. "It was a car accident," he continued. "I was supposed to pick Grace up from her dance recital that day, but I got stuck in a meeting. Helena took her instead." He looked down. They never made it to the intersection. Silence stretched. No words could patch that kind of wound. Maria said softly, "I'm sorry." "I don't need sympathy," he said, but the words lacked sharpness. "I'm not giving you sympathy," she replied. "Just honesty. It hurts to lose people, even if you're rich, even if you're strong." He looked at her. Then something unexpected happened. His voice cracked. "I still hear her," he whispered. "Sometimes, in the halls, when it's quiet. That's why I kept it silent here, because if you let one sound in, the others follow." Maria nodded. "I know that kind of silence," she said. "The one that echoes." He looked at her, confused. She added, "I buried my mother 2 years ago, left me with 3 babies and no answers. The world didn't stop. I had to figure it out alone. You don't forget that silence." Their eyes locked. And in that moment, something shifted. Not love, not yet, but respect, recognition. A man and a woman, both carrying their own graveyards, finally acknowledging each other's pain. The next morning, something was different. The mansion didn't feel like a museum anymore. It felt alive. Maria had woken early to make pancakes for the boys, but when she got to the kitchen, she found the table already set, napkins folded, orange juice freshly poured, even fruit sliced on crystal trays. She froze in the doorway. William stood by the stove, flipping pancakes, in silence, focused. He didn't look up when he said, "They like chocolate chips, right?" Maria blinked. Yes, sir. They do." He finally glanced over, lips twitching. "It's William, not sir. You've earned that." She smiled, awkward but touched. "William. Okay." One by one, the triplets shuffled in, sleepy-eyed, hair tousled, pausing when they saw the scene. "The castle man. Cooking." Jamari whispered. "Mommy, is this a dream?" William chuckled. An actual chuckle. "Nope, just a very rare Tuesday." They all sat around the massive dining table together. The boys, mouths sticky with syrup, began telling stories about school, cartoons, the time Jamari tried to eat a bug. Maria laughed so hard she nearly choked. And William, he just listened. Every so often his gaze would soften, especially when they laughed in unison like a little choir of healing. After breakfast, Maria offered to clean up, but William waved her off. "Go outside with them," he said. "They've been looking at that garden all week." She hesitated. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I think it's time someone used it again." The garden had once been Helena's pride. Rows of roses, arched trellises, a small stone bench with initials carved into it. The boys ran through it like it was a fairy tale forest. Maria sat on the bench, sunlight warming her skin. A moment later, William joined her, slowly, like someone testing the weight of a memory. "They remind me of Grace," he said quietly, "but not in the painful way." She turned to him. "That's good, right?" He nodded. "Yeah, I think it is." They sat in silence for a while, watching the boys chase butterflies and argue over who was faster. Maria broke the quiet. "You're not who I thought you were, William Russell," he smirked. "I get that a lot." "No," she said. "I mean it. You're kind, but you hide it." He looked at her. Really looked. "And you," he said, "are stronger than anyone I've ever met. You walk into a stranger's mansion with 3 kids, no help, no safety net, and still manage to smile." Her eyes glistened. She looked away, wiping the corner of her eye. "You make it sound braver than it felt," she whispered. "Maybe bravery isn't about what we feel," he said. "Maybe it's about what we do anyway." For a moment, the air was thick with something unspoken. Not love, not yet, but warmth, respect, and a fragile thread forming between 2 people who had every reason to be closed off, but chose not to be. The kind of thread that becomes a bond. And bonds, they change everything. If you felt something during that garden scene, you're not alone. That's the moment walls start to fall. That's the moment people begin to heal. And if you believe in second chances, in small kindnesses that grow into something bigger, subscribe. Because stories like this, they're more than entertainment. They're reminders of what we all hope for. It was just another afternoon. The boys were in the garden, playing pirates. Maria was folding laundry in the sitting room, humming quietly. William had a rare look of peace on his face as he watched from the window, sipping his tea. Everything seemed right. Until the doorbell rang. A man in a tailored grey suit stepped in without waiting for permission. Marcus Bentley, William's longtime attorney and board advisor. The type who smelled like money and walked like he owned air. "William," Marcus said with a tight nod, "we need to talk, now." Maria excused herself, gathering the laundry and quietly slipping out. But she didn't go far. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the voices got louder and sharper. "She cannot stay here," Marcus said flatly. "She's not just some housekeeper," William replied, clearly agitated. She's a liability. A single black woman living here with children not your own, in one of the most valuable estates on the East Coast. Do you understand what that looks like, William?" Silence. "You're 2 months away from a $40 million land merger," Marcus continued. "And now half the Newport board is whispering about your situation. Maria's hands froze on the laundry. "Is this about image?" William asked coldly. "This is about reality," Marcus snapped. "You were the grieving billionaire with a sealed heart. Now you're playing house with the maid and her triplets. What's next? Adoption headlines? Senate hearings?" That was the moment Maria stepped back into the room. Slowly, with her head held high. Both men turned. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." Marcus straightened his tie. "No need to apologize, Ms. Howard, just business." Maria's eyes flicked to William, but he didn't say anything, didn't correct him, didn't defend her, didn't tell Marcus to get the hell out, just stood there. Silent. Something in her cracked. "I see," she said softly. "Well, thank you for the clarity." She turned and walked out of the room. That night, the guest suite was quiet. The boys were asleep early, no giggles, no cartoons. Maria sat on the edge of the bed staring at her packed bag. She hadn't planned to leave, not really, but she couldn't stay in a place where she felt like a burden, where she could be erased in one meeting, In one awkward silence, after everything, William knocked on the door just past midnight. She opened it, still dressed, eyes red but proud. "You heard us," he said quietly. Maria nodded. He looked down, then back at her. "I didn't mean—" "It's not about what you meant," she interrupted gently. "It's about what you didn't say." William winced. "I know I don't fit your world, William," she continued. "I'm a maid, a mother, a black woman in a white man's mansion. I don't need anyone to remind me. You're not just—" "But I am," she said. "And if you're ashamed of that, ashamed of us, then just say it." Silence stretched between them. Pain, humiliation, pride. And then she closed the door, softly but firmly. William stood there for a long time, alone in the hallway of a mansion that suddenly felt cold again. The next morning, Maria stood on the back porch of the servants' quarters, watching the sky break into a soft gold sunrise over the estate gardens. Her bags were packed. The triplets were still asleep, curled in their little bunk beds. She hadn't told them yet. She didn't know how. She held a letter in her hand, addressed to William Russell, simple, clean, honest. She tucked it under the tray in the kitchen next to the crystal glasses. Somehow it felt easier that way. She'd said what she needed to say. She had no expectations. Upstairs, William sat at the edge of his bed, the house wrapped in silence again. Too silent. The kind of silence he used to crave, the kind that now sounded like absence. He looked over at the drawer, the one with the boy's drawing still hidden inside. He didn't open it. Instead, he walked to the kitchen for coffee, and that's when he saw the envelope. His name, her handwriting. He unfolded it slowly. "Mr. Russell, I won't pretend I didn't hear what was said. I know where I stand in your world, and I'm not asking to be anything more than what I was hired to be, but I won't raise my children where they're seen as liabilities, where I'm made to feel like a secret, not a person. I saw the good in you. I think your daughter would have been proud of the man you were starting to become. But I have 3 boys who need to grow up watching their mother respected, and I need to be able to look them in the eye and say, I never stayed where I wasn't welcome." With sincerity, Maria Howard Williams sat down at the counter, letter trembling in his hands. She was right. He had said nothing, not because he was ashamed of her, but because he was afraid of what it would cost him to defend her. Afraid of the board, of Marcus, of the whispers. And now he had lost her. He looked out the window, saw her car, still parked. A knock came at the door to the guest suite. Maria opened it, surprised. Nora, the estate's elderly housekeeper, stood there with a quiet smile. She held out something small, a photo frame. It was the drawing from the boys, the one of the happy family, the little hearts, framed in silver. "He told me to give you this," Nora said. "Said it should go where it belongs." Maria blinked. Nora nodded. "He's not perfect, but he's trying." Then she leaned in, voice softer. "You sure you're okay walking away? From a man who finally stopped running?" Maria didn't answer. She closed the door. Her fingers traced the drawing, and somewhere deep inside, her heart stirred again. Back in the mansion, William sat alone in the nursery. Door open, light pouring in. He placed the framed drawing next to Grace's photo, and for the first time in 10 years, he whispered aloud to no one, "I think I'm ready now." Maria sat in the front seat of her car, keys in hand. The boys were in the back, strapped in, still half asleep and unaware that their time in the mansion was over. The early morning light poured through the windshield, casting everything in gold. But Maria couldn't turn the key. Not yet. She looked up at the mansion. Breaker's estate, proud and towering, a place that had once felt so cold. Now, it felt like something else, something unfinished, something waiting. Inside, William stood by the door, suit pressed, hair combed, but in his hands, a small shoebox. He stepped out onto the gravel path just as Maria opened the driver's door. They both froze. Then, slowly, Maria stepped out, closed the door behind her. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. William finally held out the box. "What's this?" Maria asked. "Grace's ballet shoes," he said softly. "I was going to donate them after the funeral, but I couldn't." She looked at the box, delicate, worn, full of memory. "I want your boys to have them," he added. "Not because they'll use them, but because I need those shoes to still mean something, to still be part of a home." Maria's eyes welled up. He continued, voice shaking. "I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I let fear make me silent. And I've been silent for 10 years. I didn't speak up for Grace. I didn't fight for Helena. I just shut it all out." He stepped closer. "But you, and those boys, brought this place back to life. And I want you to stay, not as a maid, not as someone I hide behind closed doors." Maria swallowed hard. "And what about the board? The whispers?" "To hell with them," he said. "Let them whisper." She looked at him, really looked. This wasn't the man she met 6 weeks ago. This wasn't the billionaire who banned joy from his home. This was a man who had been cracked wide open and was now choosing love over silence. Later that day, the estate wasn't quiet anymore. The guest suite became a shared living space. The garden was now filled with chalk drawings and water balloons. And William? He had jam on his shirt. Jam. Because Jamari, trying to make his own peanut butter sandwich, had gotten distracted mid-spread and launched jelly halfway across the dining room. William didn't even flinch. He just laughed. Maria, watching from the doorway, smiled as she folded a napkin. He looked at her, like she was the only calm in a house full of new chaos. "Grace would have loved them," he said softly. Maria walked over, kissed his temple. "I think she already does." That night, as the triplets fell asleep on the couch during movie night, William picked up a blanket and gently covered them. Then he sat beside Maria under the soft lamp glow. "This house was never a home," he whispered. "Not until you." She took his hand. "No mansion ever is," she replied. "It's the people who fill it." They sat in silence, not the cold kind, but the kind that felt like a heartbeat. "Do you believe true love can survive, even after being tested this hard? Not just romantic love, but the kind of love that finds you when you've stopped looking. If this story reminded you that healing is possible, that second chances are real, don't leave without subscribing. Because maybe, just maybe, we all have a mansion inside us, and sometimes all it takes is letting a little laughter in,